Thank you all for coming. Can everyone hear me back there?
Yep.
Good. Thank you all for coming. I was very honored when my grandmother asked me to open this book launch for her. She's always been one of the most creative people I've known. When I was younger, she was the most creative person I've known as I've traveled the world and met other people and worked with people over my career. She really remained in that standing. If I think back to when I was a 5-year-old, very few caregivers could enter my imaginary world and travel with me to far off lands beyond my realm of imagination on my own as a 5-year-old. And that was something that was really really unique. It was an experience that I will always remember, being cared for by my grandmother, and I think my cousin probably has the same feeling about that. As I grew older, we worked together producing films, creative works of many kinds, to win prizes at the local county fair, and she had many accomplishments of her own in her creative and artistic career. The one that always was reminded to me was her logo design for the town of New Tecumseh, as I would see it quite frequently walking around or driving around the area here. And that was a kind of big deal for me when I was younger to think that a member of my family had such an impact, only in that small way, obviously in a whole bunch of other ways, with various awards that she's won for her creative work. And her way of looking at the world has definitely influenced my life and the way I look at the world and my approach to creative thinking, and obviously I'm sure the lives of my cousin, my dad, and my aunt, and many other people that she's had the opportunity to influence. So the work that she's to unveil today is a combination effort with some folks here and many years of toil. I'm not exactly sure when she started. I think I was in my late teens, and I'm now in my mid-20s, and might have even been earlier than that. But it's been a lot of diligent effort that went into this. So I'm delighted to introduce my grandmother, June Chambers.
I'm speechless. When I asked Kent if he would mind introducing me, he said, "Oh, what am I going to say?" And I said, "Well, you think of something." And I thought, I had no idea you'd be thinking about all the things that you did say, because I'm really, pleased that you remember some of the things that we did when you were young. And I never had so much fun being a child again. I often regretted that I didn't do the things with my own children that I was able to do with my grandson, Kent, and my granddaughter, Hannah. And it's nice that Kent included the whole family in his introduction. I'm taking a deep breath right now. I'm so pleased to see you all here in the same place. My friends, old and some new friends that I've made recently, some of my neighbors. Oh, nobody can have better neighbors than I do in Bon Head. So is that neat? Yeah, probably neat. Well, there's me, then there's Eileen and Joe, and then there's Linda Usher. So I have very good neighbors in Bon Head. They really look after me. Now, we're blessed to be in this space. David and I have been here a lot in the past. Many of our family events took place here. We think this Ted Weed Will Hall in Newton Robinson is just perfect because it's not too large, it's not too small, and we used to say it's like baby bear's porridge. It was just right. Now, I know some of you have come a long distance. I know some of you have health issues. We all seem to have health issues these days. But my team, we have been under an enormous amount of stress for the last few days because today could have been a bookless book launch. And I'm sure Mark and Tracy and Jenny and people that were really close to me, and Tracy, I think we all felt the same way. We thought, oh my gosh, what if they don't come? I mean, sure, I could stand up here and talk, but you won't get a book. about this book, Material Pleasures, Reflections of a Textile Collector, by me.
Yeah, no, it's good.
A lot of people have asked me, how is your book coming? Or, what's your book about? They must have thought I was a complete idiot. Because it's so hard to talk about what this book is about, because it's about a lot of things. Sure, it's about my textiles, but it's about a lot of things that have happened during the course of my life. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read what I've written in the book. This book is about the joys of collecting, the intimate knowledge that it brings, connecting with people and places from an era so different from today. It's about quilts, blankets, coverlets, and needlework, mostly from Waterloo County, but some from Simcoe County, Eastern Ontario, Upper New York State, and Pennsylvania. Textiles dating from 1834 to the 1940s. It's about country auction sales, entertaining auctioneers, breathless excitement, finding treasures, sometimes with fierce competition from like-minded souls. And you gotta believe that. The idea crossed my mind as I was airing some of my blankets, an annual task to check for moths and split seams. As a gentle breeze lifted the line, the colorful fabrics ballooned like sails. They were so beautiful. Memories of auctions and people scrolled through my mind. With my 81st birthday just passed, I realized it was time for me to write this book. The book that I thought about for the past 7 years. Now, I'm going to talk about my first auction sale. Well, the auction sale bug bit me first. One was to be held at a home nearest in Barrie. David was at the office at work, and Bruce had to forgo his afternoon nap. Yeah, I was keen on the children having afternoon naps. I was so anxious to attend the sale that I bundled our 3-year-old son into a stroller and carried an umbrella. I don't remember the details, but I do remember that a green wicker rocking chair, a coal scuttle, and a plain pine box were carried down the stairs in our bungalow and into the basement. I was so hoping David would be pleased, but was very disappointed with his lukewarm reaction. After all that, now, a year later, things changed. We were returning home from a holiday in Ottawa, passing through the village of Norwood, when I spied a shop window filled with antiques. Well, you can imagine. David reluctantly stopped. In the back of the store, though, there was a splendid octagonal table with a pedestal base, circa 1880, needing repairs. It was missing parts of the mahogany veneer, and the restoration work had begun. We talked about that table all the way home. I believe that moment, that shop, sparked his interest in the possibilities, inspiring the collecting passion in him that was to remain for the rest of his life. That's the truth. So, let's see. Well, there's many things that I could talk about. It's always hard to select just what is the right one. But maybe I'll start talking about auction sales. One of the very best jobs I had in my whole life was writing articles for the Woodbridge Advertiser, Ontario's auction paper. Now, David and I, we would always look at the newspapers and we'd see where the best auctions were going to be held. Where the best auctions were going to, where the best auctions were going to be held. So lots of times they were in Waterloo County, so that, because there was a Mennonite population there, and their auction sales had so many things that we really appreciated and wanted to buy. And often, in those days, which was about 30 years ago, it would be the first sale that was being held in that home. So you were getting what the market would call fresh things. So we would always stay with David's parents in Elmira, and then we'd get up early and we'd go to the sales. Now sometimes, with Murray Gerber, he was one of the big names in the auction business in that part of the world, we could go the night before, and that was wonderful for me, because writing these articles up, it gave me a chance to rearrange some of what Murray had done so that I could make a nice arrangement of pictures for the paper. But unfortunately, some of the things that I didn't take pictures of and didn't get a chance to take pictures of, I wasn't really able to have pictures in the paper. Now, auctioneers, they're really something else. And I don't know how many of you here know Bob and Ernie Severin. Are those familiar names to any of you? To Bruce? To Sarah? And Bruce and Sarah, by the way, they weren't super keen on all these weekends that we spent at auction sales. I don't really think they ever came, because they were in Elmira and Nana was giving them good things to eat. So anyway, Ernie Severin, he was a local fellow, and he was a quintessential auctioneer because he was tall and lean. He had these very dark, flashing eyes. He even had a gold tooth. He wore a Stetson hat and he carried a cane, and he commanded your attention, and he liked the ladies because he had a rather wicked sense of humor. And of course, we ladies like guys that have a wicked sense of humor. So one time in Schomberg, we were in this big space. I forget what space it was, but there were a lot of people there, and there was all around the periphery, it was filled with tables with all sorts of things. Well, all of a sudden, Murray was, sorry, not Murray, Ernie, thank you. I get mental blocks sometimes. Ernie stopped dead in his auctioneering, and he said, and everybody was quiet, and he said, "Who moved that crock?" It was the middle of that table, the back of the room. Why, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody was going to admit that, that's for sure. Now, if you're a seasoned auction goer, you sort of stake out the things that you want, and then you're kind of always watching. You're watching to see who else is interested. And, gee, if they go back several times, you start to get nervous because you're thinking, now I wonder how much I'm going to have to pay for this item. So I'll tell you a couple of things what happened that I noticed. Now, the people that did these things didn't know I was looking at them. So sometimes a person would be interested in a teapot, and they just very stealthily go up to the teapot. They take the lid, they put it in their jacket, and nobody would be the wiser, really. But I knew what they were doing, and of course I wasn't going to say anything. But obviously the person that did that got the teapot for next to nothing. Now the other thing, mean, eh? Now the other thing that probably was done more commonly, at all auction sales, there's all kinds of cardboard boxes with wonderful things and all kinds of books, ephemera, calendars, all those things. Now, if you're really interested in some of those things, one of those things, what you do is very stealthily you go up and you pretend you're not that interested, and you sort of rifle through whatever's there, and then when you think nobody's looking, you put that book into another box and you put it in the bottom. And then of course when the auction starts, you don't, I mean, you think that that's your box with your books in it, because lots of times the auctioneer wanted to get rid of it and he'd auction off the whole box. So those were some of the things that happened at auction sales. But, you know, it was so special. I don't know if any of you ever do auction sale stuff online. There's nothing, there's just nothing to compare to actually being there. To being there maybe where generations of families have lived, and to see a little bit about how they live, maybe talk to them a little bit. I wish I had done that more. So the Woodbridge Advertiser provided me with all these opportunities to go to all the sales. Now I wrote up about the ones that were really interesting, and I had a little camera that I was using all the time. And it gave you license, you know, to go up to strange people and talk to them. And the most special thing, this most special event I think that we went to, and it's really hard to just isolate one special occasion, and I'm only going to tell you part of it, because I want you to see it in the book, because it comes with a lot of pictures. It happened at Spadina House, across from Castle Loma in Toronto, and they, I think they had done this a few years in a row, and it was called the Great Gadsby Garden Party. Well, we were invited because David had a 33 Buick Coupe, and another chap also had an early car like that. I think his was a Buick as well, so there was just the two cars, and we were sort of part of the scenery, and we were parked right in front of the Spadina House place. Something happened to us on the way that you have to read about in the book. It was really, we're lucky to have got there, actually. So there were people on this rainy day. They had black umbrellas, and they had black coats on, and they were all huddled. You know how now the Great Gatsby era is like the 20s and 30s, and women were wearing like little short, flirty skirts, and there was a competition, a really serious competition. So all these people came, either dressed or just like myself. I had a badge that said the press. That's why I'm telling you this story, so I can brag a little bit. See what an audience does, see what your laughter does to somebody who's up here feeling a bit anxious. The laughter just makes you feel like, well, I'm saying something that's funny, and they're laughing, and that's a good sign. So, what else can I tell you about that? But it was the most really wonderful day. There were all kinds of people. Oh, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was at least 600 people, and I think there was more. And people came from all over to be there, and the judges were very serious about this. There were 3 judges who knew all about costuming, and they would ask each contestant to explain their outfit, where they got it, and each contestant had their own number. I have to tell you about one woman, though. I don't know how she did it. She had these heels. They must have been 12 inches high, and they were covered with rhinestones, and she was dressed in black, and everything was fringy, and she was sashaying around the grounds all day, greeting everybody. Well, she was one of the winners. She was she sort of captured the era when apparently there was a lot of money around and people were living a pretty good life. So that was a really good one. Now let me see, where can I go from here? Okay, Barclay House. Now some people here maybe know about Barclay House. Barclay House was in the village of Barclay, and for many years it was known as Barclay. So David and I, it was a Sunday afternoon, and we were living in Barrie at the time, and we were just out for a Sunday drive, and we saw this stone house near Stroud on Highway 11, and it was for sale. Stone house set back. Oh, there was a for sale sign. So we thought, oh, well, let's go in and see what it looks like. So we went in, and oh gosh, it was horrible. Everything was dirty, and we went down in the basement. We wished we hadn't, because there was rabbit cages floating around in this water. It was really, really gross. And then we came back upstairs, and we just sort of took our time, and we looked, and was windows, something like these. It wasn't, I don't think it was a rainy day, it was a sunny day. The sun was coming in through the windows. There was just something about the place. We got in the car, we talked about it, and well, we weren't sure really. We thought it was really neat, but we weren't sure. So it took a little while, and then we were there one time, and I was laying on the grass, and there was a chap that was going through the house. A chap that was interested in buying it, he wasn't sure. And I said to David, I said, you know, this would make a wonderful tea room. Well, that was David when he was young, and that was me when I was young, because if that had happened maybe 20 years later, what do you want a tea room for? I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a whole lot. So a lot of work went into cleaning up Barclay House. David was able to do a lot of the work himself, and I think he really liked that. He was starting to restore. He was starting to restore an old house without really realizing, I guess, what he was actually doing. And there had never been a fireplace there, but there was a corner in this one particular room, and he said, you know, why couldn't there be a fireplace there? So he had been reading all about Count Rumford and the Count Rumford fireplaces, which are shallow, because shallow fireplaces are good because they draw better and they put a lot more heat in the room. So he knew some local people because being a dentist, he had a lot of connections that way. So this chap came over to assess the situation, and he said, "Oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work." So David said, "Well, let's give it a try." So of course David likes to get his hands in everything, so he was helping to lay the bricks and helping to put the hearth in place. And then he said, once everything was settled a bit, and David lit a match to the paper that was in the fireplace. It went up the chimney. Well, there's nobody more surprised than that fellow that said it just couldn't be done. So that was kind of the start. And then there was a political aspect of Barclay House. It was zoned agricultural, but I had to change that to commercial, and that's the story in itself. So there's a whole chapter on Barclay House, and it's really an important part of our history, and I'm really proud, really, of the part that our family played in Barclay House. So I'm going to look at my time here. How are we doing for time? Because I could go on for a very long time. I don't want to go on for more than half an hour. So if I'm doing that, give me a wave. Have I got 20 minutes?
You've been talking for 20 minutes.
Oh, I've been talking 20 minutes already. Oh my goodness. All right, now I got to tell you about some very special people. Let me see my first direction. So I should put this. I've got to tell you. Here we go. And this is it's not really a chapter, but it's part of the needlework chapter. It's called Tatting and Edgar Nishaw.
Okay, that's the one just north of 89.
Now, Lula and Edgar Nishaw lived across the road from us in Bond Head. We settled there in about 1973, and the Nishaws, they had moved from the farm, and they were living across the road. Well, the first time I met Edgar was at the local post office. "Good day," he said. "I see you've come on Shank's pony." Well, I didn't want to say too much, but before I had a chance to say anything, he explained, "Well, you've come on foot. That's Shank's pony." Another expression was, "Well, you're all dressed up like the garden toad." Well, is that a compliment? I really wasn't sure. But the very best one, and I'll try to do this justice. He said, "Well, ministers, problem with ministers is they go by too many good stopping places." So that is something that we must remember. Now, when Edgar was 19, living on the family farm, that would have been in West Gwillimbury, he had a serious accident. He was working in the hayloft, separating the wheat from the chaff. The weather was perfect for the seasonal job. When the wheat stuck in the chopper, he gave it a push. A gust of wind unexpectedly started the blades turning, cutting off his left hand at the wrist. Edgar remembered getting very little sympathy. Apart from the bandaging and the time to heal, life would go on. Now, a local blacksmith came to his rescue by fashioning an appliance to replace the missing hand. He pounded a tine from a pitchfork, heating it to bend into a hook, then inserted it into a gun stock. A leather shoulder harness kept the apparatus in place. During his lifetime, Edgar became adept with his artificial hand hook, so much so that he wore out 7 of them. I can still picture him in the garden with that hook. With those damn weeds. The hook really came in very handy. Although he had a special prosthesis made covered in black leather, covered in a black leather glove, he would only wear it when he got dressed up. One day when I was visiting Lula and learning how to tat, Edgar demonstrated on a larger scale with a broom handle and his hook held at a correct angle. He was a patient teacher, but I was a poor student. I never ever got the hang of tatting. So I think that's why what I write about in the book, I have so much respect for, because people, the work that people did, of course they had the time that I guess most of us don't now, but they would make things, and they would make beautiful things, sometimes beautiful things out of just leftover things. And so I've tried to put that feeling into the book. Now the other thing, and Bert knows a bit about this one, it's called Arctic socks. My dad wore these ubiquitous thick gray wool socks in his rubber boots when we watched the Santa Claus parade in Barrie. They have an interesting history. Mary Camplin, who lived in Beaton, anybody who doesn't know where Beaton is, it's a small town about 10 miles northwest of Bon Head. Mary was over 80 years old when I taped our conversation. She recalled in great detail her memories of the Beaton Woolen Mill owned by James Wallace, a Scotsman. The factory made men's work socks, gray-blue in color with white toes, heels, and tops. The mill was powered by water from a nearby creek. She remembered the blue dye in the water and recalled inside the mill were huge vats of wool full of burrs and straws, with the mice building their nests there. There were carding and knitting machines. The completed socks were pulled over wooden stretcher frames and hung outside to dry. Women employed there worked a 6-hour week from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. with an hour off for lunch, earning $1 a week. Not very much, but I guess in those times they were glad to do that. And there's a very nice picture in that chapter, thanks to Bert Platt for loaning it to me. Now Bert has written a book, The History of Beaton, 1874 to 1974. So Bert's been an author for a longer time. I'll never catch up to Bert. And Kent Chambers did his best to do something with that picture, because it's not a really clear picture, but it gives you a good idea of what the women were wearing in the mill. And there was old Mr. the Scotsman there. He was the supervisor. He was standing there. So the picture does tell a story, and I find that with a lot of the newspaper clippings, you'd be surprised. You'd just really be surprised how good they turn out in the book. They're really, there's enough information there for you to understand them. There's one of Barclay House. There's the people that worked with me in Barclay House. There's pictures of them. So that was that situation. Now I've come to the part of my book which is going to take me a little time because okay, now I had some really good references. People might wonder, did she make all this up, or are these all just stories? Well, no, I never made anything up, never. But I had some wonderful reference books. I had Dorothy and Harold Burnham's book, Keep Me Warm One Night. They researched the textiles, folk art from all of Eastern Canada, and they wrote a wonderful book. It's the Weaver's Bible. And then there was a woman from the Kingston area. Quilts and other bed, Ruth McKendry. Quilts and other bed coverings in the Canadian tradition. Now, that's a book I really and truly admire because she got the history of every single quilt that was in that book. And I really regret that I didn't do that. However, lots of times when you have an opportunity to buy any of these old textiles, they're not signed. Quilters never, well, they do now. Quilters are different now, I think. Leah's smiling because Leah's a wonderful quilter, and I think she probably signs her quilts. Yes, and then there was, let's see, what else was there? Oh yeah, there's a wonderful book called The Legacy of Lace. And it was by these two ladies that just knew everything. I don't know how they could have ever done that book. But anything you ever wanted to know about any kind of needlework is in that book. And I was so fortunate. With the hanky that's on the front of that book, I was able to get a hanky that was starting to do those drawn threads. Because when you do this kind of, and when I actually have the hanky downstairs, so when you folks are downstairs, you'll be able to see the hanky, the real thing. And it's got tatting on it, it's got shadow embroidery, and if you ever want me to explain to you what shadow embroidery is, it's just magic. So I can't help but be excited about that. Now there's Make, Do, and Mend. That was a really fun chapter to do because it was in the 40s when times were tough. And how creative people were in making do, and there's a chapter on that. Now, I have to do my gratitudes now, and I probably could take a very long time doing that, and it's hard to do this because the people that helped me, if it wasn't for their help, believe me, this book wouldn't be here today. So at the top of the scale here is my hero, standing at the back of the room, and that's Mark Bertram. Honestly, I don't think Mark, although Mark has had some experience and he's very computer literate and he's very smart, catches on really quickly. I think he probably didn't realize what he was getting himself into. Really, because I'm not like that. And we were speaking two different languages because I work with my computer and I had to get it sort of translated in order for him to understand it with his, and then we get back and forth and back and forth. And of course Mark has another life besides my book. But what would happen would be, sometimes it might take 2 weeks before I got back what Mark had done. And it was like Christmas. Oh, I thought, I'll wait till after supper before I open this up. And then I'd look at it and I'd think, it started to feel like a book. Because Mark would have the pictures and the text together on the same page. He'd have the footnotes. He'd have the resources. He'd have the chapters numbered. He just had everything to do with the book. So he worked so hard on that book. And if anybody's to be proud of that book, it's Mark. So it was Mark, to be sure. But Janine Harris-Wheatley, who's been a long time, very good friend, has given me courage in dark times with her kindness. And thanks to Janine and Mark, because they enabled me to get an ISBN number. Now, I don't want to keep you too long, and I've got it here. What the heck is an ISBN number? What is an ISBN? The International Standard Book Number, or ISBN, is short, is a unique identification number for books. The numerical code, which now consists of 13 digits, contains all the necessary information about the book, such as which language area it originates and under which publisher it was published. Now, my book, it's got its own ISBN number, and it's going to be in Ottawa, and the publisher is June Chambers, but the publisher is the Tecumseh and West Gwillimbury Historical Society, because I was trying to get an ISBN number, and a whole year had passed and it hadn't arrived yet. So I said to Janine, I don't know, I mean, they said it would only take 2 weeks, and here it's been a year. So Janine says, well, the Historical Society can help out, because we're something solid. We're a historical society, so we'll publish it for you. So Mark and Janine were able to get my ISBN number and also the copyright. But the neat thing about that number, there's very little in this world that you can leave behind that something doesn't destroy. But your tombstone and your ISBN number. I think it must be at least half an hour, but I want to invite you all to come downstairs. The Institute ladies have prepared a nice tea for us. Tracy and I will be at the back of the room. Tracy's my right. Did I forget to tell? I forgot to talk about Tracy. Wow, I should be shocked. Because when I started this, Janine said to me, oh, if anybody's going to proofread your book, and Roger, I didn't mention Roger. Oh, the people that did the proofreading, Roger and and Leah, Roger and Leah, and Roger helped me with the very last sentence in my book. I didn't know how to write that, so he helped me with that, and that was very helpful. And Leah helped with the names of the quilt blocks. So I'm sorry about that. But Tracy, Janine had said in the beginning. Now she says you have to get Tracy to proofread because she won't nothing will get by her. She's very strict and very. Well, she's eagle-eyed. It makes her sound like she was kind of an evil person, but really, Tracy has to be the most tactful person in the world. And she found a lot of commas. A lot of commas. So I thank so much the people. I have such gratitude for the people that helped to make this book possible. So I'm going to end the way Edgar Nishaw would suggest. I'm going to stop now by a good stopping place.